something like carrying out the exercise of NRC, it will be relatively more difficult in this new coalition kind of government, because it is going to be dependent on the coalition partners like TDP and JDU. But from this, it will be too early to jump to the conclusion that fascism is going to be less aggressive in the days ahead. For example, if you just see some of the recent happenings after the election results, there is no indication that the fascist forces in the society are going to be less aggressive, because they are not going to take rest now that they have received some kind of electoral setback. They are already planning what they have to do in the future. From 1st July, a new set of criminal codes are going to be introduced, which were passed in the last government itself, but they are going to be in place from 1st July, which in the name of decolonizing the entire criminal justice system has a kind of and in many ways it has made the criminal justice system much more draconian and through these criminal laws, in which there will be much more difficult to get bails. The police will get more powers. So overall, state will have more power to take away the fundamental rights of the citizens. So considering all these preparations, it's too early, but it is definitely an indication that they are not going to be less aggressive. In fact, in many ways, there is a possibility for them to become much more aggressive. Through history also, we know that when fascism receives some setbacks, it becomes much more aggressive than, in the sense that it starts taking resort to some kind of conspiracies. For example, in Germany, in 1932, Hitler's party did not get absolute majority in the elections. And after that, a very famous incident in which the German parliament, Reichstag, was put on fire. And it was done by the ruling party itself, and the opposition, especially the communists, were blamed for that incident. It was purely a conspiracy, because the Nazi party had received an electoral, it did not receive that kind of mandate which would grant them absolute majority. So taking advantage of that situation, they kind of banned all political parties and eliminated all kinds of opposition. In India, of course, the shell of democracy still remains. So unlike the 20th century fascism, the fascism in 21st century has not given up its overall shell of democracy, even though the institutions within this democracies have been hollowed out, but it still claims that there is democracy and there are certain elections, despite the fact that the election commission, we all saw its conduct during the recent elections, and how the opposition leaders are put on trial and sent to jails. So, but still, overall shell of democracy remains, which gives an illusion that somehow it is not a fascist rule, because many people tend to believe that only when we have something like concentration camps, only when all the opposition parties are banned, then we will consider it as fascism. But if we understand the entire phenomena of fascism, we know that there are certain essential characteristics of fascism that define what exactly is fascism. And fascism also has learned from its past experience of 20th century. So in 21st century, it need not give up its shell of this democracy, because in order to rule for a longer time, you need to create certain illusions in the society. In order to establish the hegemony of your ideas, you do need to make people believe that this is a democracy, despite the fact that all the democratic institutions, all the media, all the kind of democratic norms, civil and democratic rights are blatantly violated. Overall, the government, even Narendra Modi, they vow for democracy. They pledge, like they say that we are a democratic country and we have been elected by the people. So this illusion is important for establishing their hegemony in the society. So, but if we see the essential characteristics of fascism, that remains the same, whether it was the fascism in 1920s and 30s in Europe, or now in 21st century, in the new form, we are witnessing fascism. So if we see the essential characteristics, in 1935, Bulgarian Communist Party leader Dimitrov gave a definition of fascism, according to which fascism is an open and naked terrorist dictatorship of the most reactionary and most chauvinistic section of the and most imperialist section of the finance capital. So there is a clear-cut linkage of fascism with capitalism. We can't understand fascism if we don't understand this linkage of fascism with capitalism. You all know that in 1929 there was a great depression in the global economy, and that was the backdrop of the rise of fascism. And even now, when we are witnessing the rise of fascism, the ultra right-wing, far-right resurgence in different parts of the world, we must see the backdrop in which this rise is taking place. The economic crisis, the global financial crisis which started in 2007-8, it still continues in some way or another, and there is a kind of great long depression which is going on. And if we don't understand this context of economic crisis, we won't be able to understand the material conditions which leads to the rise of fascism in any society. So if in Indian society we are witnessing this kind of rise of fascism, we have to understand what are these material conditions. After all, RSS, the fascist organization, came into existence in 1925, but its support base was not much before the decade of 1980s. It was after the decade of 1980s that with the Ram Mandir agitation, the support base of the Sangh Parivar and BJP started increasing. So, and that also was the period of the crisis of the Indian economy, the public sector brand of capitalism which existed, which euphemistically is called as Nehruvian socialism, but it was not socialism, it was a public sector brand of state monopoly capitalism. So there was an economic crisis in 1989, and that was the backdrop of the rise of BJP and Sangh Parivar. First, it was Mandal agitation, and then Advani's Rath Yatra began. So what I'm trying to say is that we have to understand this economic backdrop. If we have to understand, it's not just because of the ideas of the Sangh Parivar that they are able to spread this hatred. it is the economic conditions which we need to look at, which is creating the situation of unemployment, job losses, recession, and inflation. All these factors are very important to understand this fascist rise. And one of the great German communist leader, Clara Zetkin, said once that fascism is a kind of punishment the working class gets when it does not bring about revolution. So in the times of economic crisis, if there are kind of dual potential. If there is a revolutionary party, it can mobilize the people to bring about a revolutionary change in the society. But if the revolutionary forces are weak in any society, it is the reactionary forces who become dominant, who create some kind of a glorious past which never existed, but they do create this illusion as if there was some kind of, in India, some Hindu Raj, great Ram Raj in the past, and we will restore that kind of Ram Raj again. So we all know that historically there was nothing as such like Ram Raj in the history of India. It is purely a myth. But one of the tactics of the fascists is to create myth and into history, so turn myth into history. And that's what Hitler and Nazi party did in Germany. They created the myth of some glorious German past and pure Aryan blood, which they wanted to restore that glory. And in order to mobilize people, in order to tap the anger of the people, people who are angry with the economic situation, with unemployment, with price rise, with corruption. So they come up with some imaginary enemy. So in Germany, the imaginary enemy was in the form of Jews. All Jews were held responsible for all the problems of German society. Similarly, in India, Sangh Parivar takes this advantage of the situation of economic crisis to make an enemy figure in the form of Muslims, that it is because of the Muslims that these problems are there. And we don't need to go back to read the works of Golwalkar and Savarkar. In this recent election, the speech, if you just listen to the speech of Narendra Modi, he was doing precisely that. When he was terming Muslims as Ghuspetiya, they are producing more babies, he was indicating, he was in fact trying to make this figure of imaginary enemy among the in the Muslims community, so that now this category of Hindu, monolithic Hindu, which does not exist, but they try to create as if there is a uniform Hindu interest which is against the interest of Muslims. So that's what the communal politics does. That's what the communal politics did before independence. Both Muslim League and Hindu Mahasabha and RSS, they all were doing the same thing before independence. And after independence in India, if you see the entire politics of RSS and BJP, they do this precisely. And they start with a Muslim community, but over a period of time, this enemy figure is expanded to include all those who are critical of the government. So this urban Naxal or anti-national, so this is nothing but expansion of this enemy figure. So if you criticize Narendra Modi, if you could criticize BJP, then you become automatically anti-national, right? So this kind of myth making is an integral part of fascism. So this we must first understand. Without that, we can't understand fascism. Of course, in India, it came in a different form. In the time of economic crisis, it rose to power, but it existed in society even before that, because you already had a cadre-based fascist organization which had a clear-cut fascist ideology in the form of Hindutva. Hindutva is a fascist ideology similar to the ideology of the earlier fascist ideology in its Indian form, in the sense of making like an imaginary figure into the, among the Muslim community. So, and the fact that it is a cadre-based organization which works in the society even when BJP is not in power. So, in the current election, BJP has cut to size, and its vote share has also reduced. But still, if you see RSS and their institution, they are constantly working, spreading hatred in the society. So they do this even when BJP is not in power, and that's how they create a kind of reactionary social movement in the society. So fascism, the post-war studies about fascism have also indicated that the most essential characteristic of fascism is that it exists in the society in the form of a reactionary mass movement or some kind of social movement. That means, so not all the social movements are progressive. The social movement of fascism is a reactionary in nature. For example, the Ram Mandir agitation was a social movement. Ordinary people took part in that movement. The working people, the lower middle class, they became part of that movement. And that's how this reactionary social movement came into existence. RSS as an organization existed from 1925, and it developed its ideology and its various institutions over a period of several decades. But it was in 1980s that, using advantage of the crisis of economy, that it was successful in building a kind of social movement in the society. So, and that means it is not, even if it is a very naked dictatorship of the reactionary section of the capitalist class, it is not like a military dictatorship, because there is a social support base here. It is supported by a social movement, and what a fascist party like RSS and BJP, they do is to link, to weld this social movement with the interest of the corporates, the capitalist class. That's what has been done, and the outcome is the emergence of Narendra Modi and he becoming Prime Minister. If you remember, before 2013 or before that, till I think after 2002 Gujarat genocide, from that point onwards, Modi's popularity was not much beyond Gujarat. Even the large section of the people outside India, many countries had banned him to travel. But it was, for the first time, it was during Vibrant Gujarat Summit in Gujarat, that people like Anil Ambani, Ratan Tata, they proposed that Narendra Bhai should be the Prime Minister of this country. Before that, no one had visualized that this mass murderer can become the Prime Minister of this country. But it was what I'm trying to say is that it is the capitalist class who picked and chose this figure of Narendra Modi because it served their interest. Because they suffered from this decline in their profitability because of the global economic crisis, and they needed a figure like Narendra Modi who could use nationalism, who could use communalism to kind of divide the masses so that they don't unite to fight against the system, they don't unite to bring about a revolutionary change, a progressive change. Instead of that, what they are able to do is to kind of divide the people, and people are fighting among themselves. So it helps the ruling classes, it helps the capitalist classes, because people are blaming each other rather than blaming the system or blaming the government. They are fighting with each other. Of course, whatever they hoped, they are not able to do exactly in the same manner. Of course, they hope that even in the third term, Modi will win with thumping majority and they will be able to go ahead with their plans. But the reality has some other aspect, other contradictory aspects, which means that people are suffering from unemployment, they are also suffering from inflation and corruption. Just before the election, we had the scam of electoral bond. So all these also led to the lack of popularity of BJP and Narendra Modi, and definitely they could not achieve what they wanted. But still, if we understand that fascism is, it exists in the society in the form of a reactionary social movement, then we will also understand that this is not the moment of complacency. This is not the time to celebrate that, okay, they have received some electoral setback. It is the time to prepare our own strategy, how to counter this kind of reactionary social movement which exists in the society. They distort history, they create a very false vision of the society, and they are spreading hatred. So how do we challenge this kind of ideology in the society? How do we expose these fascist forces? That is the real challenge before us, for all of us who are thinking about some kind of resistance of fascism in India. So I believe that this is the moment of coming up with our own strategy of resistance against fascism, long-term strategy as well as short-term, because even if, let's say, because of the compulsion of coalition government, it is not able to come up with some legislation which it wanted, like Uniform Civil Code or some exercise like NRC, it is going to be working in the society. And even if, let's say, that is also a possibility that this government does not complete its full term and there is some kind of mid-term election. And let's even assume that BJP loses the elections. This social movement will continue to exist. They'll continue to create the division among, especially the hatred against Muslim. They will continue to do that. So our strategy must include all these possibilities. Only then we will be able to come up with some effective anti-fascist resistance. If we are content, if we are satisfied that, okay, we have been able to give them this electoral setback and now it's time to take rest, they are already working. They have started doing work from the next day onwards. As the elections were announced, they are continuously working. The shakhas are still working every day in almost every part of the country. Because if you see, if you analyze the election results, this is just one aspect that BJP received electoral setback overall in terms of number of seats and also in vote share. But there is another aspect, which means that in some parts of the country, BJP has managed to increase its vote share, including in Telangana, right, and number of seats also. In Kerala, they achieved victory for the first time, and their vote share has increased, even in Tamil Nadu. So, for the first time, BJP has become truly a nation, a kind of national party. Before that, people assumed that it is mainly a North India cow-belt phenomena, but now it has become a national phenomena. That is also yet another reality which we have to take into account. It's not the time for celebration or to be satisfied. It is the time to think much more seriously about this beast called fascism, and all we have to understand it in all its manifestation. Electoral front is just one wing. It exists in the society even when BJP is not in power, or even when BJP's vote share is going down. So with this, I'll close my opening remark and invite all of you to be part of this discussion. Any of you can just raise your hand if you want to speak, and just before speaking, introduce yourself. Somebody can just hand over the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Maqsood. I have a question that...
Please introduce.
My name is Maqsood. So, in Indian politics, we have seen that till 1980s, in National Congress has been dominated. But since the democratization of Indian politics, we have seen a lot of caste-based parties. And what we saw is that when the caste-based parties, especially in the UP, BSP, Samajwadi Party, but as soon as they lose the hold that has been captured by the BJP, especially. But in this election, we saw that Congress party again has somewhat cut to size the BJP because of the caste-based coalition. So, are we looking forward for another caste-based coalition to defeat the fascism in the country? Can that be a strategy?
Okay, so if we see the history of the caste-based politics, or what is known as Mandal politics, there is no way to suggest that it can effectively counter fascism, because in 1989, during the VP Singh's government, when this Mandal Commission recommendation were introduced, so there was agitation against that. And in fact, at that time, this Janata Dal and all these were parts of Nitish Kumar, Lalu Yadav, Mulayam Singh Yadav, all of them were part of that Janata Dal coalition kind of thing. But now they are separate, they are having their own party, they are doing caste-based politics. But if we see in the long term, like from 1990 onwards, have they been able to curb the growth, the rise of fascism in the country? I feel that they have not been able to do that, because this caste-based mobilization which they do, BJP does that much more effectively. In this election in UP, they might have lost, but few years ago, only I think 2022, BJP won with thumping majority in UP, using the same caste-based calculation, right? So when it comes to Dalit, for example, BJP has been working among Dalits. It's not without the reason that BJP made a Dalit as president earlier, and this time a tribal and woman as a president. So this caste-based identity politics is in no way going to put effective resistance to this onslaught of fascism in this country. In fact, BJP is much more capable of doing this kind of identity politics, and it is proved. And we should not just take one election as an example. And in this election, I do not believe that it is only because of this caste equation that BJP lost. It is mainly the anger of the people against the policies of the government, the price rise, corruption, unemployment, job. That is the most important reason in places like UP. Uh, uh, these were the reasons people were angry at. Even in Varanasi, Narendra Modi's constituency, earlier he won by more than 5 lakh votes. Now this time it is only 1.5 lakh. It's not, you can't explain this only by caste. You have to take into account the economic reasons, the class factor. So it is the very complex equation of caste and class which we have to understand. We just can't understand this phenomena by isolating caste with other economic factor. Because if it is just caste, then BJP will definitely do this kind of social engineering in much more effective way. And they have been doing. If you see in last 30, 40 years, they have kind of eliminated BSP. Now, if you see in the long run, now Dalit vote bank is now in a large way shifting towards BJP. In this election, they were not successful because of all other reasons which I cited. But it doesn't mean that if we are only focusing on caste, we are somehow going to be challenging fascism, even in the electoral arena I'm talking. We discussed that fascism is not confined to the electoral politics, it is there in the society. But if we only take into account the electoral arena, it is this mandal, so-called mandal politics, and now they are coming up with something like caste census. These kind of issues BJP can easily tackle. That's what I believe. Our strategy needs to be much more comprehensive, much more long-term. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Anand. Hello, everyone. I am Hidayat. So you spoke at length regarding the strategy, right? So I think one of the strategies could be we need to be more vocal, right, about this fascism. And when we talk about fascism, it merely translates in this context to, being against the ruling party, correct? So I think we face a lot of backlash when we do that, right? Not just in the society, but also at the workplace. That is the reset phenomenon I have observed. So it is just an observation and maybe a question as well. How do we tackle such backlash? Thank you.
Okay, so I think the best way to tackle the backlash, backlash will be there, but we have to come up with the truth. In the times of fascism, speaking truth is the most revolutionary act, and there are risks associated with that. So we should be ready to speak the truth, and the truth is in our side. We must question the nationalist credentials of BJP and RSS. We must tell people that where were they when there was indeed a need for patriotism during the freedom struggle. What were they doing? They were acting as informers of the British. They were spreading hatred even then. They were engaged in spreading hatred and inciting communal violence even at that time, right? So their past and their present is itself sufficient to expose them. Like after independence, whenever they have been in power, they have been engaged in the most corrupt form of practices, most anti-women, anti-Dalit nature of their overall ideology can be easily exposed. Even during Vajpayee's government, there was a scam, the Tahalka scam. There was a scam of within the army about the Kargil war, and during Modi regime, Rafael scam or electoral bond scam, several scams happened, and not just corruption. Their claims, we must question all their claims, like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Recently, what happened in Karnataka with Prajwal Ravanna episode, what happened in UP, Unnao, in Kathua, Bilkis Bano case. So we must question all these credential of their nationalist credential, their pro-woman credential, their pro-Dalit credentials, right? So let's say there are many Dalit people, there are many women also who support BJP. We must put forward these facts of history. Truth is in our side. And many times, if we ourselves don't know the history, basically, those who are challenging fascism, if we know the facts of history, we can easily challenge them. Like the most shameful aspect of their ideology is that they openly collaborated with the colonial powers when India was under control of a foreign rule. That was the time when you needed patriotism, right? But you failed. So, yeah, but of course we'll have to be ready for facing the backlash, because there, as we discussed, if it is a social movement, there is certain ideologies which is spreading in the society, and people are influenced by their ideas. To some extent we can counter, but there are also some class interest associated with that. If let's say upper middle class, it's difficult to convince a upper middle class Hindu upper caste person to go against BJP, because their class interests are linked with that, right? So we have to understand that who can be influenced. That's why I believe that we need to go to ordinary people, the working people, the working class, the lower middle class, which constitute overwhelming majority of this country, who are the real forces who can challenge these fascist forces. As you go up in the class hierarchy, your interests are tied with the interests of capitalism, and it is this capitalist system only which is supporting this fascist rise.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. My name is Farooq Hussain. I am a social activist. My concern is wherever there is local government, like in Karnataka or in Telangana, we have Congress. During this election, Loksabha elections, these people could have reduced the number of seats for BJP, but they did nothing. You know, when Siddaramaiah took charge as an CM of Karnataka, he gathered all the police officers of Karnataka. He gave a very sound brainwashing for even. There should be no saffranism, nothing. But here in Telangana, we saw nothing like that. So the result was more seats to BJP. And you know, like the incident in Sainakpuri, no police officer or anyone will concern us, will listen to our voice. So what we can do to make this awareness?
I think not everyone must be knowing about this incident in Sainakpuri, which is highlighting. So it was in January, around this euphoria of this mandir inauguration. We had organized a movie screening in Sainakpuri, in a cafe in Sainakpuri. You must be knowing about a movie called Ram Ke Naam, which actually brings about the truth of this entire Ram Mandir agitation, how it was mobilized, how the hatred was spread, Advani's Rath Yatra and all. So we thought it better at that time to inform people about the reality of this Ram Mandir movement. So, but we could not complete the screening. In between, VHP guys, they attacked they tried to disrupt that screening, and they were successful in disrupting that. And the police came, and instead of taking action against those who disrupted, they have filed cases against us, the organizers. and the case is still going on. And so this was not even a BRS government, it was the Congress government, a newly elected Congress government. Revant Reddy was the chief minister, and we saw in the police station, the police was acting at the behest of RSS and BJP. So that is the reality. That's why I was not even very hopeful of this India Alliance and Congress party. If we are banking on them in our fight against fascism, we are bound to be disappointed, because even in the electoral arena, despite so much discontent among the population, they could not tap this anger of the people, because if they were successful in tapping this anger, the BJP could have been reduced to less than 200 and they could have come to power. So it again, I do not expect much from a party like Congress, which, if you see the history of Congress, they have also acted in a very authoritarian manner in the past during emergency, and their soft communalism has paved the way for hard communism of RSS, if we see the history of India. So we should not forget that now that they are in opposition, they are pro-people. I do not think that they can effectively resist fascism. So we, the people, will have to prepare our own strategy against fascism.
Yeah, I like to add a thing about Congress. Recently, the case of Arundhati Roy, UAPA was introduced by Congress only. So we have to be critical of what Congress has been doing entire time.
I would also like to add that BJP is the disease while Congress is a symptom of that disease, and I feel like it's also very important to see that, like Anita pointed out, Congress was the one that laid down UAPA. So the policies that they lay down are exploited by and are they become an easy ground for parties like RSS and BJP to spread their hatred further. And we have also seen in the election results that a lot of working class people were the ones who expressed their anger and fought for these, fought to make sure that the BJP doesn't win a thumping majority. So I think that shows that whatever party is in place, it's the working class that needs to, that can actually resist these fascist forces better and that can give an answer to them. That's all I would like to add, yeah.
Yeah, so not just UAPA, incidentally, if you see the history of the draconian laws in India, before UAPA, we had Kota, Tada, MISA, NSA. So there is a long history of draconian laws. BJP has just made it much more draconian, but it's there even in the constitution. The provisions of preventive detention is there in Article 21 of the constitution itself. So deriving from that, all the regimes at different points of history, they have been introducing some kind of very draconian laws which easily like gives power to the police to take away the democratic rights of the people. So that's what, if we have to understand fascism and what fascism is doing now, we have to also go back to history, that who paved the way for this kind of fascist rise.
So sorry, my name is Ashwin. So you have mentioned that like BJP had a setback in the electoral arena because of the anger of the common man, because of the not having enough jobs, unemployment, inflation, all these issues. But there is also a large chunk of the population who do not care about these things. Like, even though they are working class, they suffer from these issues. They just want mandir. They just celebrate killing of Muslims. So like, how do you appeal to that section of the people?
Yeah, yeah, it's true that there is a section of even working class who support BJP. There are many reasons for that. For example, there is so much poverty, hunger and malnutrition in India that many people support BJP because they give some 5 kg of rice to them. These 80 crore people were given some kind of help by the government in post-corona. So for them, this itself is sufficient to support BJP, or not just these material benefits, even ideologically. There are people who are religious, so who will be easily, who can be convinced by RSS and BJP that all those who are questioning Narendra Modi is like they are against Hindu religion, they are against Indian nation. So here comes the role of political propaganda. They are able to do their own political propaganda in effective manner precisely because they have the support of RSS, which is a cadre-based organization, which continuously works in the society, which spreads these misinformation that Modi is some kind of avatar and he's doing so much for the people of India, and Congress has looted this country for 60 years, now give some more time, right? So all this setting the narrative, apart from the mainstream media, the Godi media and all, the network of RSS, through that they spread all these kind of false narrative. So that is where the challenge lies, that those who are against fascism, how do they come up with their own networks to reach to the people, to the same people, and say that this is like whatever the government is doing is not kind of charity. They must demand much more. It should be their entitlement, it should be their fundamental right. The rights like right to work, there should be a employment guarantee act, there should be a fundamental right for housing, for education, for healthcare. So a kind of counter propaganda, a kind of revolutionary propaganda against these counter revolutionary forces, against these fascist forces is what is needed, because as I told in the beginning, that this economic crisis opens up a dual possibility. If the revolutionary forces in the society don't spread their own version, the reactionary forces, of fascist forces will be successful. And at this moment of history, it looks like that they have been more successful in spreading their own narrative in the society. So the operative part is that those who are against this fascist rise must come up with their own strategy. And I personally believe that we need a new revolutionary party in this country. We cannot be dependent on this existing political formations, looking at their past.
Hello, I'm Kamal, and I just wanted to ask this thing, like the awareness and the factfulness are one of the core things to take a rational decision, right, in India or any country or anything. But like as you previously mentioned, the higher classes are being incentivized by government, and the middle class needs capitalism because they want to move to upper class, and middle class are always believes in what do you say, these facts, what do you call this, surveys and all, which are being completely manipulated by government. And the lower class, they are being incentivized with the rations you have just mentioned. Like while even though we want to create awareness, the people are blind, they don't want to take the awareness because of these things. So in such conditions, how to create awareness over them? Because they are already incentivized to not to be aware. If they are not being aware, they are getting bigger benefits generally. So I think this is a crucial problem we should address. Even though we have a party or we have a media or whatever it may be, the people will not take it in unless they get incentivized or something like that. Because that's the I think that's one of the core issues that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, so talking about incentive, so for example, the lower middle class and the small owners, let's say, so they tend to support BJP and RSS because uh, they convince them that like in this capitalist system there is always a threat that the small owners, they can also become some kind of worker, right? This threat is always looming large. So in this condition, what happens that these BJP and RSS through their own network, they are able to convince them that it is because of these Muslims that your problem is increasing. So here it's not just the material incentive, it's their kind of ideological explanation which is responsible in this case. For example, among the lower middle classes, it is more of this threat of becoming a kind of worker and losing whatever wealth is there. That they are scared of that, and when it is presented, it is that Muslim who are enemy. They tend to be convinced. But then if you have a counter propaganda against this, that it is not the Muslims who are responsible for your miseries, but it is the entire system which is profit-based system, and we need to fight for our rights, like right to employment is should be a fundamental right, right? Right to health care should be our fundamental right. This also, it's not that kind of incentive in terms of money, but it will raise their political consciousness. The point is that those whose political consciousness is not advanced, they tend to go for either these kind of immediate monetary incentive, or they easily come under the influence of misinformation or hatred, right, or some kind of propaganda. So, but if the task of any revolutionary organization or which thinks about building an effective resistance against fascism is to raise the political consciousness of the people that what is meant by democracy. In democracy, people should have certain fundamental rights, and it's not it's not a kind of charity which government is giving in terms of some monetary incentive. So it's a question of raising the political consciousness of the people, and political consciousness of the people is not raised in a day or two. So you have to continuously work in neighborhood, in the lower middle class bastis, in the working class. The way the RSS and their organization, they continuously work. It's not the material incentive by the government. They continuously work through their shakhas and build the hegemony of their ideas among the people. So if we want to really counter them, then we have to work, we have to go to the people, spread the truth, the reality of the society. And since truth is in our side, if we are continuously working in a very planned manner, in long term, we are bound to be successful in countering their propaganda and effectively put up a resistance against fascism. But for that, we definitely need those people who are really willing to devote some time for this very important task of our time, which is kind of building a new kind of revolutionary party, a kind of organization which continuously works in different parts of the country. So that is the real challenge of this moment.
My name is Hina and I'm a member of In Defense of Reason. So I wanted to add to the point about crisis, the nature of crisis of capitalism, which paves the way for fascism to come about which Anand also talked about. Because like some people comes up with the solution that like in order to fight this, like it is very unimaginable to think about like a socialist kind of system rather than like the end of capitalism itself. People come up with the solution of like a better kind of capitalist society, of like a controlled kind of capitalist society where like small businesses and like there should be like a control on exploitation and the amount of profit that companies make. That we have to understand that like that is not a very viable thing. We the last few decades have like proven that like this time the depression or like the economic crisis is a long-term one. And even after like so many attempts, like there is not like even if there is like a boom which is also not there, it is like very short-lived. And even if we learn the system of capitalism, it cannot like its profit earning rate goes down in the long term if you take it as an aggregate. So when that happens, it becomes more ferocious, more aggressive. And that's when it needs to, all the rights that workers have, like 8-hour working or whatever, they are all like earned, they have been fought for. So giving these rights to workers is not very profitable for the capitalists. So they need to have a government which will make their profits increase, for which it has to have like a government like the Modi government right now, which will like blatantly, not unlike Congress or any other coalition, the Modi Sarkar has been able to blatantly, very violently crush down people's rights. So we have to keep this in mind that like a solution cannot be like a better capitalist system itself, because like the system is not sustainable. In the long run, it cannot keep earning more and more and more profit. Its average rate of profit cannot go up. So when that is not happening, the capitalists will always want to earn more profit. There cannot be a better way of capitalist system. And also I wanted to respond to his caste, your question about the caste coalition. Adding to Anand's point, like even in 2002 Gujarat riot is like a good example to look at that. Like before that, Dalits were the main object of hatred in Gujarat before the Muslim pogrom that happened. But during that movement, BJP was able to successfully convert, like Dalits were also unleashed against Muslims. So we have to see that like politics of identity cannot ever be a solution. It can only be like when people, all the exploited and like all the people come together, when these forces can be fought, not on the basis of identity.
Hello, my name is Shrija. I'm also a member of In Defense of Reason. I wanted to just add on to the discussion and the link between capitalism and fascism. We cannot look at them separately, as Anand has mentioned, and they are, like, fascism is one form. It's the most naked and brutal dictatorship of the capitalist class. And the reason for that also we've discussed, what happens when crisis comes. And the answer in today's era of fascism is different, or because the kind of fascism we have now is different from the fascism of the 20th century. Even if we look at the examples of Nazi Germany or Mussolini's Italy, because they also happened at, there are obviously some common features that it's in a moment of crisis that the rulers need a fascist regime. And it was in the wake of the Great Depression that fascists rose to power in these countries. But it was also the context of the world wars. After the World War II, Europe was completely devastated. It was sort of burnt to the ground. And it was on those sort of contracts and opportunities of rebuilding Europe that America and then consequently the rest of the world recovered from the Great Depression. That financial boom that we see, that was what set it off. But we are not in that sort of situation anymore. The stage of capitalism we are at and the kind of recession that we've been having since 2008, since 2011 in India, there is no recovery. We are not coming out of it. And hence there's no possible, so similarly we can't imagine that fascism will go away with, Congress defeating it. In fact, we should understand that if these are the conditions, then fascism will prevail in some way or the other, right? And that's why they're preserving this shell of bourgeois democracy also. They know that if they do naked dictatorship like Hitler and Mussolini, ultimately they will have to be wiped out. So then we also have to look beyond the older sort of options that we have and understand that truly, completely, fascism can only be wiped out by a complete revolution. This system that breeds fascism has to be changed. We can't expect to just put fascism aside and let this system continue. It's the natural consequence of this system.
I think one very ironic thing I keep thinking about, sorry, my voice is kind of gone, but that a lot of us leftists don't really believe in bourgeois democracy, but the times are such that we have to act like bourgeois democracy is this like, sacrosanct thing, because we're fighting against fascism, right? Although we know that bourgeois democracy is what sows the seeds of fascism, and it will always keep bringing it back whenever it finds it convenient. And one other thing that's different in the 21st century is that governments now are infinitely more powerful. 6 months ago, they shelled tear gas from drones on farmers. Our policing is becoming technologically much more advanced. The window for a revolution seems so narrow, and yeah, just like because we're talking about strategies, and obviously a new revolutionary party is indispensable, but for now, it seems like we're settling for supporting a more centrist bourgeois, democracy chahiye humko first before we want anything else. And if we're settling for this, what does it mean, Are we still going to be clear-headed long term? That this is not really the end of everything, it's just a means. Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Rafia. I'm a student. So I was going to respond to you, and I was basically going to say that when we have discussed and we have said that we have to secure our democratic rights within this system, we don't mean that we want to preserve capitalist democracy. What we mean is that whatever amount of very limited democratic rights this constitution has provided us. Because when the constitution has given us one right, it has also added a sub-clause to take it away. In whatever way, how much ever it is possible, we have to secure our democratic rights, basic rights, the right to union, the right to organize. Because it is on the platform of this capitalist democracy that we wage the struggle for evolution. And as we have said that, yes, fascism, the system is going to bring back fascism. Fascism is going to be there in society, whether it's BJP is in power or not. RSS, the parent organization of BJP and the whole Sangh Parivar, VHP, Bajrang Dal, they are going to continuously, they work. Whenever they get an electoral setback, they will work more aggressively in society. And the fascism is there in society. The question is that, as we have mentioned, each economic crisis of capitalism, each recession has a dual potential. When the revolutionary forces are not organized, when they do not have a clear-cut strategy, when they have not been working for decades within the masses and organizing them, then the reactionary forces, the fascist forces, have an opportunity to utilize that for their ends, to protect the system, to work in the benefit of the capitalist class, to divide the masses in India on caste lines, on Hindu, Muslim, Ram Mandir, pata nahi kya kya. Or in this, they use this. So each crisis, each recession has a dual potential. Our real task here is to organize the revolutionary forces, to organize the working masses, the lower middle class, the working class, the small peasants and middle peasants, the students and youth. It is by raising the real issues of the people that the fascist forces, the RSS, BJP, and their whole organization, they work day and night so that the issues of unemployment, poverty, inaccessible education and healthcare is not raised. This is why they work so tirelessly to create communal violence, to burn down people's homes. So it is by raising these issues and working within the masses, by building a revolutionary organization, by having discipline, this is how we are going to defeat them.
I'll just respond to this question about the power, that the ruling class has become very powerful. The governments have become technologically advanced. Of course, they are the most advanced weaponry in the history of humanity. But this pessimism, I think, comes from a lack of sense of history and lack of faith among the ability of the masses. When we don't have sense of history, we tend to believe, we tend to see only one aspect of the reality, which is presented by the spokesmen of the ruling class themselves. For example, this fact that the governments and the state has become all powerful is the version of the ruling classes to scare people, to create confusion among the ranks of those who really want to think about some alternative, to make sure that people don't start thinking and questioning. But if we have a sense of history, which means that if we know the history, in the history of humanity, all kinds of oppression, they all lead to a counter movement against those oppression, a resistance against those. Slave owners at some point of time had become very powerful. At that time, slaves were defenseless and no one had expected that these slaves will revolt one day. Similarly, in the medieval era, the feudal lords had become very powerful, and the serfs and the peasants, there was a time that no one had expected that these serfs who are so much subservient to the landlords will at one day revolt. Similarly, it is true that at this moment of history, the governments of the world, the states, the military, they have advanced themselves, but then we are also seeing that despite all their power, despite all their weapons, they are trying to annihilate the people of Palestine, but they are not able to do that. Why is it? They are not able to they are not able to break their resistance because the people are still resisting against all this, and the justice-loving people are in support of their struggle. So there might be violence, there might be bloodshed by the ruling classes through their advanced weapons, but ultimately, as the great revolutionary leader Mao once said, that in the ocean of masses, all these weapons are submerged. When there is a mass revolt, then all these weapons are of no use. As Bertolt Brecht said once, that General, your tanks are very good, your aircrafts are very good, but it has a flaw that you need a human being to control that. So there will be revolt among all these armies, because in the armies, it is the sons and daughters of the peasant and workers of this country who are working. There will be revolt within the bureaucracy, and there are signs of revolt in the election. What is it? Despite all their money, all the Godi media, election commission, everything. Why is it that they could not secure majority? It is some kind of revolt, some kind of discontent happening. Of course, it is not taking us that kind of radical form, but because that automatically does not happen. You need certain leadership to lead the masses to bring about certain revolutionary change. So the time right now is not to be pessimistic. The time is to prepare for for leading this mass revolution in this country. And for that will happen only when we have faith in the ability of the masses. Individual people, individual worker, peasants, they might look very subservient, they might look very superstitious, but when we see the history of the world, the people of Vietnam, for example, how is it that they were able to defeat the mightiest power of the world, the USA? It is their sheer courage, their ability to challenge, and there was a leadership, there was a revolutionary leadership. So I would suggest that instead of being so pessimistic, all those who really believe that this capitalism is not the end of history must now think about what can be done to bring it down. Ultimately, it has to become a kind of, it will be thrown to the dustbin of history. But you need that kind of revolutionary force. And for that, we need to work both in society and at the theoretical level in terms of ideas. For example, if we have to defeat fascism, we have to understand what are the social base. If RSS and their supporters, their other organizations are going to the society, we all must also devote time to go to the people to convince them, as we discussed, that it has to be a continuous process, and then we will have that critical mass which can bring about this revolutionary change. In Indian society, it is possible. It's not that Indian society is some kind of exception to the larger world. So, but it does need certain kind of preparation.
In addition to the last point which I discussed before, the same thing I want to repeat is, see, any speech of Rahul Gandhi, he does not conclude it without bashing Adani and Adani. Now our Telangana CM is bringing business with Adani and all. He is making hands. He being a big leader, he could have stopped it easily. So, being a Congress government or the Telangana government, we have to fight for fascist forces in our own capacity. It's not the end of the road when we see the Congress party is there or another party is there. So we have to just choose between the lesser evil and the bigger evil.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we shouldn't have to compromise and pretend like we want to stop at bourgeois democracy if we don't believe that. We should look beyond the elections and actually work among the people. Then we wouldn't feel that we're not able to do anything, or this is the sort of limit. If we want an alternative, we have to become that alternative. And it's very possible because, like Anand also said, we can't and we shouldn't underestimate the power and the ability of the people and the masses to actually do this and actually understand what's happening, because it is their lived experience, right? For most of us who come perhaps from middle class households, it's a very different life. And so we think from our perspective that, because we see it in our families, among our friend circles, that in general people seem to be very okay with the status quo. But that's not the case with the majority of the country. And that is a good thing. That is, yeah.
Hi everyone, I am Sampath. People like Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, who have made very big scams in our country, are enjoying a very good life. Okay, but when we look at Sai Baba, the differently abled professor, is he a victim of fascism, or is he a real threat to the national security? You answer.
Yeah, he's not just the victim of fascism. In fact, he was arrested when Congress government was in power. So he is the victim of this capitalist system, not just of fascism. Because if we remember, it was the Manmohan Singh government which said that Naxalism is the biggest internal security threat. It was not a fascist government. Operation Green Hunt was started by Congress government, and Chidambaram was the home minister, and it was at that time Professor Sai Baba was arrested. So I would say that he is a victim of capitalism, but then I'll not even say that he's a victim. He's a part of the movement of the people, and who's leading kind of front instead of, as compared to, there are so many other professors who are just working for the system. He chose to work in the interest of the people, in the interest of the ordinary tribal population. So I would not just present him as a victim. He's also having certain positive opinion about the society, what he wants to do.
So my another question is, I think one among the participants have not only one person, most of the folks are of the opinion that the oppressed class or backward class have to take the forefront of the revolution and fight against these fascist forces. But most of the media and power is lying in the hands of upper classes. Is it really possible in our country to these oppressed classes to come forward and take against these forces?
Yeah, so no, the question is, how do we measure the ability? So the reason why oppressed and exploited population are bound to revolt is not in some kind of inherent ability, but it is because of the conditions which are created by this very system, right? So it's, if capitalism is able to fulfill the needs of the population, it is able to provide employment, it is able to provide healthcare and education, then obviously people will not revolt. The thing is that this capitalist system, because it is based on maximization of profit, it is not able to fulfill the needs of the population, for the majority of the population, for the working classes, for the small peasants, for the medium peasants, it is not able to. That's what was proved by Karl Marx in his book, Das Kapital, that it is not that they are some bad capitalists, it's not about their intentions. It is about this structure of the system, that the system inevitably leads to this polarization in the society in which there is accumulation of wealth on the one hand and there is accumulation of misery on the other hand. So for majority of the population, the system has only misery to offer. So in this miserable condition, people are bound to revolt. All their weapons, all their media is going to be of no use, because it is not the propaganda which can fill the stomach. It is not the Ram who is going to, Ram Mandir who is which is going to. That's one of the reason why BJP was defeated in Ayodhya, right? There are some indications of that. Of course, it's not a mass violent revolt, but why is it that a place where Ram temple was situated, on that there was an entire movement, and yet people voted against BJP? That means these conditions are also leading people to challenge this narrative which is being spread continuously by Godi media and all their propagandists. The conditions are different. Now, the thing is that is the next question, that masses spontaneously they can just revolt. But there is a difference between revolt and revolution. For bringing about a revolution, that is a new alternative society where there is no exploitation and oppression, you need certain revolutionary party which beyond, like without that, such kind of revolutionary party, the revolt of masses will be just confined within the system, and the system has also the ability to co-opt all these kind of discontent and unrest. So there is bound to be unrest, there is bound to be discontent, there is bound to be revolt. But whether we are able to utilize this situation of unrest towards a revolutionary transformation is up to those who are really, who really believe in some kind of alternative society. Because if we don't do that, then the fascist forces are working and they are spreading their own ideas in the society, and that's why that's what explains the rise of BJP and RSS in last 3 decades. It is not without reason that this coincides with this rise of neoliberal policies. The rise of BJP and RSS is, it coincides with the emergence of this neoliberal privatization, liberalization and globalization. They are interrelated. So at this moment they are successful. The counter revolution in this country is successful at this moment of history, but this is not the end of history, right?
Hello everyone, I'm Mac, I'm a lawyer based out of Hyderabad. So I do understand the points that are being raised with respect to capitalism, but to an extent I think in an open market system it is essential to also understand there's a balance between everyone having an opportunity to move ahead and make some things of their life, and as well as sustain themselves. So the vilification, I would say, to an extent would definitely show that there is a what we say exploitation of labor, as one of our participants said, and as on the other hand I would say, like, we are seemingly not pointing out the obscure here, because given the government initiatives towards supporting the corporate bigwigs or supporting the establishment of small and medium enterprises, wherein the peripheral system is being targeted. So here the obscurity I'm talking about is the free and easy use of data, wherein how can the youth of the country can be led astray by easy access to the internet and easy access to data. I've lived across different parts in the world, but I've seen data access is very expensive. So here if we look at the youth that is being targeted, as well as how Cuba was infiltrated by CIA to create internal imbalance, and therefore the government collapsed, either Fidel Castro or Che Guevara, if we take those timelines. So I think apart from the changes in the current system and the scenarios, we should also look at the peripheral view, wherein there are other ways that the ruling government, I would say, there are other systems that are trying to distract or create a sense of euphoria or a sense of utopia within the youth that are and should be a part of a changing system. Thank you.
Yeah, about this open market, I mean free market you are saying. I mean, if this free market system was able to fulfill the needs, I don't think people would have so much hatred was needed by this system itself, right? It is precisely because it is not able to fulfill the needs of majority of the society that it needs the organization like BJP and RSS to spread hatred, and only after that there is the need of data. Na? Otherwise, why was this need of data? If this free market was able to work in just manner, it was not like, it did not need any kind of fascist force. It needs fascist force because they know very well that capitalism cannot fulfill the needs, because if you have emphasis on profit, that profit comes only at the cost of the wages of the people, right? So there is a contradiction between wages and profit. There is no win-win situation. Let's face this reality. If we face this reality, then we'll not be under illusion that this free market is very just and fair. It is unjust because those who work here, they do not get any share in the fruits of that production. Those who get fruits of production, they do not work. This is the reality of this free market, which different names are given for this. So this is inherently unjust system, and because of this inherently unjustness, it needs some kind of fascist ideology or some kind of right-wing ideology to hide this reality, to create some imaginary enemy. For that, it needs some data, and of course, they have the resources, they have access to the data. And as compared to them, those who are opposed to RSS and BJP, they have relatively less resources and access. That is the fact of history. But then our hope does not lie only on the data. It is ultimately these conditions which are unjust conditions, which are going to push forward towards some revolutionary change. And if, as we are discussing, if there is this kind of revolutionary organization and party, it will also have its own network, its own kind of data and technology, which might not always always successful in overpowering the propaganda of the ruling classes, but they will be more effective in the sense that they are reflecting the reality, right? Why is it that even now, despite their hold over media, there are many independent YouTube channels which are becoming more popular, even though they are not very revolutionary. I mean, people like Dhruv Rathi and Ravish Kumar are not the revolutionary examples of revolutionary news media, but still, they are certainly not part of the mainstream media, and the fact that they are becoming more popular, it indicates that if you start speaking the truth, you start talking about raising the people's issue, people are bound to come towards you. So it's not just about how much money you have, how much access to the data. It's mainly about the kind of politics which you support. And if you support revolutionary politics, then you will have to figure out how to increase our access to data, access to media and information, how do we spread our information. That becomes a technical challenge that can be overcome if we challenge this larger political and ideological issues, basically.
I just wanted to add to that and to answer to ma'am's question. The window seems small for revolution. It is because mainly nowadays, like on Instagram and other social media platforms also, we see more left-leaning posts and stuff nowadays. But most of them are many times limited to the social media platforms only. It's not like groundwork is not happening actually. When groundwork is happening, and like many a times, like those are not pushed by the algorithms also. For example, some of us were part of this campaign named Bhagat Singh Jan Adhikar Yatra, which has been going on for more than a year now. And as part of that, we went to different part of the country this last December and January. We covered around 11 states, and even in that also, like just the way capitalism or the crisis makes the ground ripe for the fascist, it also makes the ground ripe for a revolution also, if only it is the correct things are taken to the people. We saw that like while we went especially to the lower and lower middle class section, and it was like really surprising that many of them, we of course also faced opposition by Sanghis, but like many of these ordinary people were like nodding vigorously and like listening and agreeing, because these are problems that they face on a day-to-day life, in their lives, right? Inflation and everything, for a lower middle class person or lower class person, they cannot, like, most of their salary goes into just paying rent. And they are like facing this on a day-to-day basis. So many of them were like, there was this old woman who just said in UP ki EVM se jeeta hai Modi, varna wo kaise aata. Like, it was like very good to see also. So there is ground, like people, because of all the problems through which people are put, there is ground for like a positive change. What is required is like more people to join the movement, more people to go to people.
My name is Maulik. I'm from Nalsa University of Law. So from everything I gathered, especially the point you made about the division in the power that they have, because upper class and ruling class are obviously with the oppressor, right? And again, the part about preserving social democracy itself and not going towards ruling class democracy. All of this, I can see the biggest tool in India's history that has either spurred like tyrannical things like the emergency or has gotten us out of it has been the judiciary. Right? Courts have been at the forefront of every social change, whether resistance or oppression. Right? So what we need to do, for example, I think you, sir, brought up Naxal, the Naxalite movement, how Manmohan Singh termed it as terrorist government. But during the 80s, 90s, when from the centers, because of center pressure, Andhra government had locked up thousands of Naxalbari leaders and whatnot. It was the Andhra courts that actually acquitted a lot of these leaders, and it was the work of lawyers like Kanan Biran and like prominent judges within Andhra courts that actually took the side of the resistance and took the sides of these Naxal leaders that the center was pressing down on. So what this tells us, even things like UAPA, you have judges like Bela Trivedi, who won't let Umar Khalid go free forever at this point, but you also have Supreme Court orders like Prabir Purkayastha, who got his arrest deemed illegal by the Supreme Court, which is a very refreshing judgment, right? So from all of this, what we can see is, firstly, we need to reclaim the judiciary. We need to ensure we scrutinize every decision the judiciary makes. Because outside of legal circles, how many people do actually read high court judgments or district court judgments? How many people keep up with that? Because judiciary has such important work that isn't scrutinized is what lets it get away with so much. So what we need to do is ensure separation of powers, better separation of powers, and secondly, scrutinize every decision your local courts make. Have a look on every decision the Telangana High Court has, every decision even Delhi High Court, because they have such important cases. So just scrutinizing these decisions is a big step to take in order to like go for resistance.
Okay, so I agree that we need to reclaim our democratic rights and judiciary and all, but I disagree that judiciary has been at the forefront of all the struggles in India. In fact, judiciary by and large has been taking the side of the rulers. Let me complete and then you can present your view. Because judiciary is also part of the same system, it has to function within the framework of the system, right? So if the system is a kind of based on private property, it cannot go against the private property, right? So this is the limit. So even while we are reclaiming judiciary, we must be mindful of the limitation of the judiciary, and we must not expect beyond a point that this judiciary itself is going to lead the revolution. That's what I'm trying to say, because judiciary is also part of the same system. We must try to make it more pro-people, I agree. And there have been definitely many advocates and many judges who have been pro-people. But then we don't decide the characteristic of a system or an institution based on the behavior of some individuals, right? By and large, if we see in the history of independent India, the judgments of the judiciary have been disappointing, right? So in between, if there are some progressive judgments, we should not forget that this judiciary itself gave the verdict to build Ram temple, right? We should not forget that in this judiciary only, people like Sai Baba, people like Bhima Koregaon, people Anand Teltumde, Gautam Naulakha, you are giving One way is to be happy that Prabir Purkayast got, even he's not, his charges are not like taken, he's just got some bail. But the other way of looking at is that what was the crime of all these people? Father Sten Swami, he died. So which one to highlight? You are highlighting Prabir Purkayast case. I will highlight all those cases when people of this country have faced injustice by this Supreme Court. I'm not talking about the lower courts. So even Supreme Court have failed. Even the most so-called progressive chief justices of this country, they have let people down. So I'll not be very happy if there are some occasional progressive judgments. And I do not hope that this judiciary is going to lead a revolution. I will just make an appeal to all pro-people advocates and jurists of the country to take the side of people when these revolutions are going on, because that is the real test, right? For example, we just screened a movie in Hyderabad and 295A is laws of spreading communal hatred. So I will say that this, why is it that this section was not imposed against Narendra Modi? He was openly saying that घुसपैठिए हैं, what we were doing. So I will highlight this injustice part of this judiciary rather than highlighting and glorifying the great judiciary of India. I will say that there was a limitation. This Indian constitution provides very limited democratic rights in the country, and even those extremely limited democratic rights have not been delivered to the people of India. I can give, for every one example, I can give hundreds of examples where it has failed.
I want to add one more thing. Maybe you can respond to both together. That the judiciary alone we can't look at, because a lot of the injustice and the exploitation of the system happens outside what we call crime in a bourgeois society, right? The theft and the loot of the common people, the way that the inflation rates are spiked, the way that jobs are stopped, the way that public universities are just simply told now to seek private funding. These are all injustices against the system that the judiciary will offer no solution for. Because within this system, this judiciary doesn't consider it a crime. So beyond the things that it does consider a crime, among which it does also grant us some democratic rights, and it's doing overall a completely bad job at protecting those rights also. So we should look beyond it, because it is the people that make history. It is the people that fight for their rights. The judiciary might sometimes in certain systems within the ambit of that system provide some rights in the case of violations or safeguard them to a limited extent. But they are never the ones who will transform society.
Yeah, judiciary was never at the forefront of revolutions per se. I also point out how every oppression was also, at the forefront of every oppression was a Supreme Court judgment. So what is essentially the point is, judiciary is a tool. Judiciary is a way to work within the system and then get out of it. Judiciary, like you brought up Stan Swami, custodial deaths, whatever. For every Stan Swami, I agree, there's hundreds of cases of judicial misdoings. But this is also because of infiltration of judiciary by the central powers, right? If you, like the funniest example is the Calcutta High Court. Recently a judge retired last month. In his retirement speech, he goes, I've been a fan of RSS. Now that I'm out of judicial service, I will go be RSS devotee. So you see his entire career, he's been a fan of RSS, he will give biased judgments. So this infiltration by these fascist movements, like not just BJP, RSS, even the authoritarian Congress government, this is what causes these these unfair judgments and these what the little power they have, even that not being used correctly. So the entire point was, when I say Andhra courts, when I say your local courts, is that you focus on local level judiciary, because day-to-day basis, like getting a Naxalite free from Andhra jail, or getting someone of petty charges in Tihar jail is a big step forward in the grand scheme of resistance. All these people who are under charges for UAPA, if the I agree, hundreds of people are charged by the same judiciary, but if Prabir Purkayasta is one example that maybe if the infiltration of the government can be pulled back, maybe if these 100 people can be let go of, that is the step we should take for now, and then forward we have to work around the limitations of the judiciary. That is essentially the point.
That is true that we need to work like within that system also, criminal justice system. It is true that fascist forces have taken over. There is kind of internal takeover of the system, even though the external shell is still democratic. Internally, the ideology of RSS has infiltrated in all these institutions, and that is also an arena of struggle. And there I said that we definitely need to work in these institutions also. How do we, to whatever extent the democratic rights can be protected within the system, we need to work in these institutions and try to challenge the ideology of right-wing and BJP and RSS. But only point was that we must know the limitation of this framework, and when we talk about revolutionary change, we are talking about transcending the limits of the framework of this capitalist system. We need a different type of system which will have different type of production, different types of economic system, different types of political system, including the judicial system. So that long-term view which like I was taking, and if we have any illusion about the existing system, we will not be able to think about those long-term solutions to these problems.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not very comfortable. I'm not very comfortable with the mic. Is it okay if I? Thanks. So one thing I feel is, there are 2 points I want to make. One point is that we say the judiciary is infiltrated, almost like as if the judiciary has been a great judiciary at some point in our country. The judiciary has never been a great one. It's always created. I feel like it's always created. It was created by the people in power who were already oppressing by them. So it's not like the judiciary was infiltrated and now it's become bad. It was never great to begin with. So personally, I would never depend on the judiciary for anything, and would put the revolution to crush the judiciary and create a new one as well, if possible. Second one is, this one I'm still learning and I'll accept. I'm still yet to figure out, in most of the discussions we talk about class discrimination, which is very real and I'm sure is one of the solutions. I'm yet to discover or understand how it works together with caste discrimination, which has been the struggle since quite some time, and I'm trying to read up a little bit more on it. But yeah, I would like to just also share that in discussions like these, it'd be really nice if we understand how to club it with solving for caste and class at the same time, if not just class. Like I felt like the whole discussion went majorly on class, but I wanted to understand if firstly everybody believes that caste is supposed to be solved with class, and if so, what can be the ways to?
Yeah, about the first one, about this infiltration, it is true that right from the beginning, it was serving the interests of the rulers only, but there are different infiltration by the fascist forces, I'm saying. That 20 years ago, maybe you could not expect that a judge will openly say that I have a RSS background. And not only after retirement, one judge, even before retirement, he joined BJP. You could not expect this even 20 years ago. So there has been an evolution. We must be mindful of that also. With no illusion about judiciary, we must be mindful of the fact that there is greater and greater encroachment and infiltration of the fascist forces within judiciary, which is a fact which we must be mindful. Regarding caste system, definitely we must talk about caste. We have a limited time, but then I think since you have asked, definitely caste is very much important, even the fight against fascism. Not just caste, patriarchy, we must take that into account. We have not yet discussed all the aspects because we have very limited time. We believe that when we are talking about a revolutionary change, any revolutionary change in India will not be possible without building, along with an anti-capitalist movement, anti-caste movement, and anti-patriarchy movement. So the movement against caste, the movement against patriarchy, and the movement against capitalism, they have to be integrated. The question is, how do we integrate? On what basis do we integrate? Our organization, and I personally believe that it is, for example, anti-caste movement should not be built on the basis of caste identity. For example, if anti-caste movement does not mean that only Dalits should be part of that. It should be class-based anti-caste movement, because a section of Dalit population also will not be part of this movement. People like Mayawati, people like Athwale, they are part of the ruling classes, right? Why will they? They are Dalits. So that's what we term as, there are so many Dalit IAS and IPS officers. Will they not order lathi charge when we go for protests? They will do that, right? So it is not the identity-based anti-caste movement. It is the class-based anti-caste movement, which is the need of the hour. Similarly, it is the class-based movement for the emancipation of women. And these movements will definitely affect these fascist forces, definitely play a very important role in diminishing their power, because it is very clear that Hindutva, a very important part of Hindutva is the Brahminical ideology, and patriarchy is inherent, integral part of that. It is not without reason that we are finding people like Kuldeep Singh Sengar or Chinmayanand or people like Prajwal Ravenna as kind of partner of BJP and member of BJP and RSS. It is part of their ideology. Even Savarkar had said that rape should be used as a political weapon. So it is very, very true. The question is that the Ambedkarite way of identity-based politics is not the solution. That's what is my way. Marxist revolutionary way is to think about changing capitalism, whereas Ambedkarite politics confines the anger of the masses within this constitution and within this framework, which is not the solution, which cannot lead us to emancipation of caste. And of course, it does not even think about overcoming capitalism. So the question is not whether we need an anti-caste movement. The question is whether, what kind of anti-caste movement we want. Ambedkarite kind, that is only you focus on some concession in the same system, some more Dalits should be part of the ruling classes. That is what will Ambedkarism provide. Whereas we believe that we need to overthrow capitalist system. For that, we need Marxism. Informally, we can discuss outside. It always happens in our discussion that due to paucity of time, we are not able to cover every opinion and all the aspects of the issue of fascism also, for example. But after this discussion, I think here also the next program is in this room. Okay, so we can discuss outside informally, right? This discussion is not for the sake of discussion. When we say that we have to make a resistance, a strategy for anti-fascist resistance, that means all of you who are indeed interested in devoting some time in this effort, to whatever full-time or part-time or 1 hour a week, must come forward and we can form a strategy how to, for example, in Telangana, in Hyderabad, they are the most rising in this election also, when throughout the India they have retreated. In Telangana, in Hyderabad, they are advancing. So that is the immediate challenge We can discuss informally outside. That is the limitation of this room, Lamakaan. Okay, thank you all for joining the discussion, and hope you have all given your contact numbers. We'll be in touch. Thank you.